By the time he realized her worth, she had already chosen peace. This is a story about loss, clarity, and a woman who reclaimed her life.
Welcome to Muunlight Tales, where stories are brought to life.
Edna did not rebuild her life loudly. She rebuilt it carefully. The first few weeks after she returned to work were exhausting. Balancing a demanding job with motherhood felt like learning to breathe all over again. Mornings were rushed, nights were short. But each day she stepped into the bank, something inside her straightened. She was no longer the woman waiting to be approved. She was the woman who knew her worth. Her colleagues welcomed her back with quiet respect. Not pity, not gossip. Respect. Her performance spoke for her long before words could. Within a month, her numbers rivaled what they had been before she left. Within 3 months, they surpassed them. Headquarters noticed. The branch manager, Mr. Attawale, noticed even more. He had always seen Edna as more than an employee. He had watched her rise from a young marketing officer into a leader who inspired loyalty and results. When she disappeared suddenly for family reasons, he had known something wasn't right. When she returned thinner, quieter, but more focused than ever, he understood without asking. One afternoon, he called her into his office. "You've done exceptionally well," he said, folding his hands. "Again." "Thank you, sir," Edna replied. He studied her for a moment. "You know, life will try to break women like you, especially when you are capable. Never let anyone convince you that your strength is a threat." Edna swallowed hard. "Thank you," she said softly, "for not giving up on me." He smiled. "I didn't help you because you were weak. I helped you because you were strong." Those words stayed with her. Outside work, her friends became her anchor. Women she had once laughed with over lunch now showed up with meals, babysitting help, encouragement, and sometimes money, given without judgment. They reminded her who she was when she forgot. They never made her feel small. And slowly, Edna's self-esteem returned, not as arrogance, but as quiet confidence. Taio, meanwhile, was enjoying his illusion of freedom. At first, the new woman, her name was Sola, entered Taio's life like a fresh breeze. She was vibrant in a way that felt intoxicating, always dressed sharply, always smelling expensive, always laughing at the right moments. She admired him openly, without restraint. She praised his intelligence, his ambition, his success, often in public where others could hear. "You're not like other men," she would say, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "You think big." Taio loved the way those words sounded. With Sola, he felt seen again, but not challenged. She never questioned his decisions, never slowed him down. She celebrated his confidence, fed his ego, and made him feel powerful in ways that were effortless. He began to show her off. At events, at meetings, on trips. He liked the way people looked at them together. He liked the quiet envy. He liked the narrative he had built for himself, that he had moved on, upgraded, chosen excitement over responsibility. Sola fit perfectly into that story. Money flowed easily around them. Weekend trips became frequent. Hotels turned luxurious. Dinners were no longer planned. They were impulsive. He bought her gifts without thinking, watching her eyes light up each time. "You work too hard," she would say, laughing softly. "Enjoy your money. Money is meant to move." Taio nodded, smiling. Why wouldn't he listen? All his life, his instincts had served him well. His business had grown quickly. His risks had paid off. He believed success was proof of wisdom. So when Sola casually mentioned an opportunity, Just something a friend is working on. He didn't hesitate. The first loss was subtle, an investment that delayed returns. Nothing alarming. He told himself delays happened in business. Sola waved it off easily. These things take time, she said. You know that. The second loss stung more. A partnership dissolved overnight, contracts voided by technicalities he hadn't scrutinized closely enough. He felt irritation, but not fear. He had buffers. He always did. Then came the big one. Sola spoke about it with excitement that was contagious. High risk, high reward, fast growth, massive returns. This is how real money is made, she said, eyes shining. You can afford to be bold. Against a small, quiet voice in his head, Taio committed heavily. Too heavily. Weeks passed, then months. Calls went unanswered, meetings were postponed, explanations became vague. The company folded quietly, leaving nothing behind but paperwork and empty promises. The money was gone. When Taio confronted Sola, the woman he met was not the one who had praised him so sweetly. Her warmth vanished, her voice hardened. "You're the businessman," she snapped. "Why are you blaming me? Did I force you?" He stared at her, stunned. Gone was the admiration. Gone was the support. Gone was the softness. Within weeks, she began to pull away. Emotionally first, short replies, cold expressions, impatience. Then financially, no more shared plans, no more dependence. Finally, completely. She left without drama, no apology, no regret, just absence. And for the first time since Edna walked away, Taio felt something heavier than loss. He felt exposed, alone in the silence of his house, surrounded by things he had bought to impress someone who no longer existed. He began to think, not loudly, not defensively, clearly. And that was when Edna's face came back to him, not crying, not begging, not angry, but calm, steady, grounded. He realized too late that what he once called boring had actually been stability, and what he had mistaken for excitement had been the beginning of his downfall. And for the first time in a long time, Taio sat alone in his house, really alone. That was when he began to think clearly. He thought of Edna, of how she never pushed him into reckless decisions, of how she was careful, methodical, grounded, of how she built things slowly and sustainably, of how he had called her a burden. Regret crept in quietly. By the time Taio realized how badly he had misjudged her, Edna had already moved out. She had found a modest but beautiful apartment close to her workplace. It wasn't flashy, but it was peaceful. Every item in it had been chosen deliberately. Nothing felt heavy. Her daughter thrived. Daycare became routine. Laughter returned to the house. Edna slept well again. When Taio finally reached out, Edna was in her office, reviewing a proposal that would later earn her branch another commendation. Her phone buzzed on the desk. She glanced at the screen and froze for a brief second. Taio. It had been months since she last heard his voice. For a moment, her heart skipped, not out of longing, but out of surprise. She had trained herself not to expect him anymore. Still, she answered. "Edna," he said, and even through the phone she could hear it, the tiredness, the caution. "Can we talk?" There was no authority in his tone, no confidence, no command. "Yes," she replied after a pause. "We can." They agreed to meet in a quiet cafe not far from her office. Public, neutral, safe. When she arrived, he was already seated, stirring a cup of coffee he hadn't touched. She almost didn't recognize him at first, the man who once walked with his shoulders squared, chest forward, eyes sharp with certainty, now looked smaller. His clothes were neat but worn, his face thinner, his eyes restless as though they had learned to search for exits. He stood up quickly when he saw her. "Edna," he said again, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. She sat across from him, calm, composed, her posture relaxed. She did not ask how he was. She did not offer pleasantries. She simply waited. "I made mistakes," he began, rubbing his palms together. "Serious ones. I wasn't myself." She nodded slightly, saying nothing. "I thought I knew what I was doing," he continued. "I thought I was in control, but I lost my way." She sipped her water quietly. "I want my family back," he said, his voice cracking just enough to betray him. "I want you back." The words hung between them. Edna looked at him, really looked at him this time, at the lines on his face, at the uncertainty in his eyes, at the man who once stood tall over her life and reduced her to silence. And she felt resolved. "We were never good together," she said gently. "I was surviving. You were controlling." His jaw tightened. He leaned forward, desperate now. "That's not true. We were happy." She met his eyes. "You were happy. I was disappearing." Silence fell. "I've changed," he said quickly. "I swear I have. Losing everything opened my eyes." She smiled, but there was sadness in it. Not for him, for the years she had lost trying to make someone comfortable at the expense of herself. "Change doesn't begin when you lose everything," she said softly. "It begins when you respect people while you still have power." His shoulders slumped. He tried again. "I know I hurt you," he said. "I know I broke you, but I'm ready to fix it. We can start again, for our child." Her expression hardened just a little. "Our child will grow up seeing a woman who chose peace," she replied, "not one who returned to pain because someone else finally felt it." He swallowed. After that meeting, he didn't stop. He called mutual friends, family members, old colleagues, anyone who might still answer his calls. "Please talk to her," he begged them. "Tell her I've learned. Tell her I'm sorry." Some tried, some hesitated, others refused. When he went to see Mr. Adewale, the branch manager who had once defended Edna when she left her job, he was already exhausted. "I made a terrible mistake," Taio said, voice low. "I lost a good woman." Mr. Adewale listened quietly. "I don't need you to tell me," he replied. "I watched it happen." "Please," Taio said, pride fully stripped now. "Help me." Later that week, Mr. Adewale invited Edna to lunch. He did not lecture her. He did not advise her to forgive. He simply asked, "What do you want?" She didn't have to think. "Peace," she said. He nodded slowly. "Then choose it, and don't feel guilty." That was the final reassurance she needed. When Taio called again, she answered with calm certainty. "No," she said. "Not because I hate you, but because I love myself now." His voice broke on the other end. And for the first time, Taio truly understood the weight of what he had lost. Not just a wife, not just a family, but the woman who once gave him everything until she learned to give herself back to herself. Edna ended the call gently, and in that quiet moment, she felt something she had never felt before. Freedom. She focused on her career, on her child, on herself. Within a year, she was promoted. The office celebrated her openly this time. Her friends threw her a small dinner. Laughter filled the room. Someone raised a toast. "To Edna," one of them said, "for choosing herself." Edna smiled, eyes shining. Later that night, as she tucked her daughter into bed, she felt something rare and precious. Contentment. She had survived control disguised as love. She had walked through betrayal, dependence, and loss, and emerged whole. She was grateful. Grateful to her friends who held her up. Grateful to a manager who treated her like a daughter. Grateful to herself for not giving up. And as for Taio, he learned painfully that control does not build loyalty, and power does not equal wisdom. Some lessons come too late, but Edna's ending was exactly on time. She had her life back, and this time she would never hand it over again. Not every woman gets a second chance like Edna did. Not every sacrifice is reversible, and not every apology deserves acceptance. Let this story remind you, love should never cost you your identity. Marriage should not require your silence. And independence is not pride, it is protection. Edna's story ended well because she chose herself. May others learn before they have to lose everything to do the same.
We have come to the end of this story. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe.